Hello and many thanks for joining us on this edition of the program People, Politics and Power. I am Imonia Marere. We sincerely do apologize for coming to you a little bit behind schedule. Now, the quest for a people's constitution in Nigeria has been on the table since independence in 1960. However, the clamor in contemporary times dates back to after the promulgation of the 1999 Constitution by the military government, by which the Fourth Democratic Republic came into being. The 1999 Constitution has been in operation for 25 years running, yet the agitations in different forms have not abated. The latest is by a group of eminent Nigerians known as the Patriots, who recently visited President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and demanded that the National Constituent Assembly be convened to produce what they described as a people's democratic constitution that will reflect the plural status of Nigeria. The group was led by the former Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Chief Emeka Anyaoku. The Patriots put forward two key proposals to achieve a truly federal constitution and to save Nigeria from the unfortunate fate that befell countries like Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, and Sudan, that is, disintegration. The group suggested to President Tinubu to send an executive bill to the National Assembly to convene a constituent assembly that will produce a new draft constitution and for the National Assembly to legislate on a national referendum to which the drafted constitution should be subjected. This process, the group says, can be achieved within 6 months to bet a constitution that fits Nigeria's diversity and pluralism. It also suggested that the proposed Constituent Assembly should be made up of individuals elected on a non-party basis from each of Nigeria's 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Our guest today is a member of the Patriots group, a former senator, a politician, and a prominent rights activist, Comrade Shehu Sani. It's good to see you again. Welcome, Comrade.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Okay, we'll go on a short break, and when we return, we delve straight into our discussion.
Nigeria of our dream, the Nigeria we need, is the united, indissoluble, and cohesive Nigeria which guarantees equity, fairness, justice, and prosperity for its citizens. That is our focus on people, politics, and power. It is fresh, insightful, impactful. It's a must-watch. People, politics, and power on AIT.
Distinguished Senator Shehu Sani, a rights activist, a former senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and a prominent politician, a member of the Patriots group that visited the president just recently. Thank you so much for finding time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
So, what is the necessity and the need for a new constitution? We have experimented, or rather we have practiced the 1999 constitution with the amendments so far for 25 years. Is 25 years enough to determine whether a constitution is working for a country or not?
Well, it's important, first of all, I let our viewers know who are the Patriots. The Patriots is a group of eminent Nigerians cutting across all lines. It is non-partisan. And the first chairman or president of the Patriot was the late Chief Rotimi Williams, and then he was succeeded by the late Ben Akabweze, and then Nwabweze.
Ben, Professor Ben Nwabweze.
Professor Ben Nwabweze. And then now we have Chief Emeka Anyaoku. Now, the Patriots is not a political organization. And sometimes in March this year, we had a colloquium. And the most important aspect or resolution of that colloquium was that there was the need to have a new constitution for Nigeria. And the next step was to forward that resolution of that colloquium to whoever is in the position of power and authority as the president of this sovereign country, which is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And we faithfully did that by seeking for his audience, which he graciously gave us, and then we came to make submission. But because of the time lapse, there was an emerging issue that came, which was the last nationwide protest. So in the meeting we had before the meeting, we resolved that other than the issue of the constitution, the president should also address the issue of the protest. And we did that. Now coming back to the constitution, the resolution of the Patriots to push forward for a new constitution stemmed from the fact that it is recognized that the constitution is the binding principle that establishes us as a state and as a republic. And it is also the guiding rules that set the tones for whatever we do and whatever we should not do. And in the whole assessment, and appraisal, was that this constitution was enacted to us by the military, which was 25 years ago. And there were unforeseen emerging issues that came in the last 25 years, which of course brings the need for us to sit down as a democratic state to write a new constitution for ourselves, which we can say it actually came for ourselves. The last constitution was a constitution drafted to us by the military, and they had to do that because we had to transit from a dictatorship to a democracy. And now it has outlived its usefulness, and now we said we should have a new constitution, a constitution that will address the challenges, the odds, the hurdles we face as a country, that will make governance easier and bind us more as a nation, and then ensure that our democracy is sustained. If you don't write a new constitution, you wouldn't have legitimacy for all that you do. For example, there were a lot of cries that we don't need a bicameral legislation. We need perhaps House of Reps or the Senate. You cannot do that with this present constitution. And also you can't say that the senators and reps should amend the constitution and remove themselves out of power. And there are issues of cutting the cost of governance, having 36 state structure with the FCT, all having state House of Assembly, and a constitution that says you must appoint ministers from every state, which is 36, and then zonal, we're almost heading to 50 ministers. So, and a constitution that is problematic in terms of revenue generation and distribution of resources in the country. So we said, let us pick all these documents, the 2014 Constitutional Conference, 2005 National Political Reform Conference, and all these conferences, sit down and redraft a new constitution. And after redrafting a new constitution, then the president first write an executive bill for the need to have a constituent assembly. There should be an election according to what I may not agree with everything that was said in the Patriot, but I'm just stating what we submitted. They need to have an election where, for the purpose of writing the Constitution, and then after that, when the Constitution is drafted, it now should be subjected to Nigerians themselves voting whether the content actually reflected their interests, their wishes, so which is called, in a word called referendum. It's simply about telling people that this is the constitution you write for yourself. Did you all agree with it or not? Then if we have the majority votes, they say we have agreed with it, then we move on and then adopt it as the constitution of our country. And then we can say that this is a constitution that comes from elected representative of the people, and that is also illegitimate being delivered by democracy. So that was the reason for our visit, and also that is the essence of our call for constitutional.
So distinguish what I hear you say and what I hear the Patriots say is that the 1999 constitution that we currently operate was given to Nigerians by the military, is not representative of the views and interests of Nigerians, and that constitution, if it were to be reformed, is not reformable. And so we need a new constitution.
Well, even within the Patriots, though these are our internal issues, there are people who believe that this constitution is legitimate because it is what gave legitimacy to all elected officials and gave legitimacy to the republic. There are those in the school of thought that it was a constitution drafted for the sake and for the reason of transition to civil rule, and we need to have a new one. So those who said amendment is fine have their reasons for that, and those who said we should draft a new one by virtue of the fact that whoever is going to give his idea, inputs into that constitution should be elected for the purpose of that constitution. Now, this is the thought. So I can say that if you are going to go, when you talk of legitimacy, it means that you have to do it from zero and then a new one to the last page of it. So that is what we went there to do.
Yeah. Before this idea of a constituent assembly, there were also agitations for a sovereign national conference to draft a new constitution. What's the difference between the two? Constituent assembly, sovereign national conference.
Well, I think it's just semantics, because whoever is going to be a member of that conference, he has to be elected to be a member of that conference. You can't just pick and choose from places. And whether it is going to be a constituent assembly, it is still going to be about people who are elected to draft a constitution. So it's all about saying that the authors of the constitution should be elected by the people, so that the people knew or know who is writing on their behalf or making input on their behalf. So that is simply, legitimacy is derived from an election. So we said elect people who will write the constitution, whether you call it constituent assembly, whether you call it sovereign national conference, is that people to write should be elected.
The 2014 National Conference had representatives from almost every interest group in Nigeria. It didn't produce a draft constitution, but it did make a lot of suggestions on how the current constitution can be reformed and made workable. It is one of the documents that the Patriots is saying we should now look at. Why don't we just take up the recommendations of the various constitution making bodies and committees that have been set up in the past and do a comprehensive review and pick up what is needed and what is required for a draft constitution?
Well, the 2014 document is a good document. It has a lot of things Nigeria needs. It also has solutions to a lot of problems. But the point is that the people who were there were not elected, and it's not different from the one which the military has also drafted. So when you're talking of legitimacy, if you want to give legitimacy to what was done in 2014, is to use that document as a compass when it comes as one of the documents, because you will still have to collect documents, submissions from different places, pass through those people who are elected to do that. So it's not simply about what is written, but the legitimacy of also what was written. Because people said there's nothing wrong with our constitution. And to me, if you are talking of my own individual view, I can tell you that constitution is not the problem of this country. and because the Constitution was well written. But if you are talking about having a Constitution that we can hold all our and own it up, and nobody will raise a finger and say, I wasn't the person who drafted this, and a Constitution that will address the challenges we are facing today. There are things that cannot be achieved by constitutional amendment except you draft the Constitution. For example, which of the states in Nigeria today will agree to dissolve itself and join the other? Will Sokoto, Kebbi, and Zamfara, will the 3 state House of Assembly and the 3 governors agree to dissolve their state and become one state? None. Will Akwa Ibom and Cross River State dissolve and become one state? No. Will Enugu and Anambra or Abia and Igbo merge? Nobody will agree to that. So you see, if you go through that pattern, you're not going to achieve. So China has 19 provinces. Nigeria has 36 states plus FCT. You can see the economic burden on this country. If we have all agreed now that the resolution of the next constitution we are going to draft ourselves should be open to address all our issues and challenges, then we are ready to make sacrifices. If now Nigerians are saying we should have one unicameral legislature, so who is going to dissolve are you going to dissolve the Senate? Or are you going to dissolve House of Reps? And people are saying dissolve the Senate, and leave the House of Reps. That's the popular view. But people have forgotten that membership of the House of Representatives is based on population and also perhaps geographical mass. If care is not taken, northern part of Nigeria, if you say only the House of Reps should be, it's possible for them to have their two-thirds in everything they want. It is in the Senate that all states are equal. Bayelsa has 3 to 4 million people, with Kano 15 million and Lagos 19 million. They all have 33 members. So if you say dissolve the Senate and leave the House of Reps, okay, you will have Kano with such a huge number of reps, and Bayelsa will be suppressed. And the trouble we have with these things is that we can't achieve this when the political class see political office and political power as their own personal property or personal fiefdom where they can control. Nobody would like to lose his control. A godfather in River State or Bayelsa State or in Gombe State will not be a godfather if the states are now merged with his neighboring states. And nobody will agree to that. So that is why we have to say, let's start from the slate and do a new one. And that document of 2014 is one. And you collect submissions from also other interest bodies, the ASU, Union of Journalists, Nigerian Labour Congress, or National Council of Women's Society, National Nigerian Students, Committee for Defense of our Civil Liberties Organization, and all these things, interest groups will all have their own submissions, and then we move forward.
Now, talking of making sacrifices, distinguished Senator, the proposal is that the president should put forward an executive bill to the National Assembly, yes, to create a constituent assembly.
Yes.
And the concern that have been expressed by some people since after your visit is that will the current National Assembly be willing to pass a bill that will constitute a constituent assembly that may eventually lead to the dissolution of the National Assembly as it is today and the executive arm as it is constituted today?
Well, that is the dilemma we are having for now. And even though we make that submission, it is all about individuals making sacrifices for the greater good of the country. If you think of the country as your own constituents, as your own interests, as monies that come to you, as your own fiefdom, your own enclave which you control, you will not be amiable to the greater good of the nation. So I've been a member of the National Assembly, know very well that it's going to be extremely difficult for the National Assembly to agree, to assent to a proposal that will lead to their dissolution or extinction. I know it's going to be very difficult, but somebody has to do it, and we did our bit, and it is left for the president and the other political gladiators to also see the value, because when we put the facts and the figures and the reasons for it before you, so it's now left for you to continue to prick your conscience, to do the right thing. We have been struggling to find solution to the problems of our country as a nation that has come into existence over a century, with a political independence over 60 years. We have been struggling to find solutions to our problem. But I think it's going to be better for us if you look at the fundamental principles of state, the guiding constitutional provisions we have that led us to where we are today. If we can do that, at least we'll be able to address most of our problems, the problems we face as a country.
Now, another major challenge that the country is facing, which you alluded to earlier on, is the high cost of governance. And there are those who have suggested over and over again that perhaps we should reduce the number of states that we have, merge some, and get some to voluntarily give up their status as states and all of that. And some persons have interpreted that to mean that we should be returning to regionalism. Is that a practical option that can be put on the table?
You see, even though many of us were young or not born during the First Republic, but in the course of our childhood, we read most of the reasons that were advanced as the basis, as the causes for the collapse of the First Republic. Under the regional system, it was said that it failed because it never encouraged national unity, and the nation was existing in compartments of regions, of tribes, of ethnicity. And as such, there was no national spirit that bind us together and to see ourselves as members of a nation, or as citizens of a nation or a republic. Now, another reason that was advanced was that under a federal system, the government will go to the grassroots, and people will be part and parcel and also the masters of their own as either local government or councillors or states, and the development is more evenly spread in the federal system. Now, these were the reasons we used to crash the parliamentary system. Then we adopted the federal American model, where you have bicameral legislature and then you have states, capital, and then local governments. And now we are raising issues. So I think the problems may not be the structures but ourselves. If you are talking of a parliamentary system is working in South Africa, it's working in Canada, it's working in the UK, it's working in Australia. If you are talking of presidential system, it's working in the United States, it's working in France, it's working in countries of the world, Indonesia, Malaysia, and other things else. If you are talking of a monarchy, a constitutional monarchy is working in Spain, is working in Netherlands, is working in Belgium, is working in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, it's all working. So it's working in Morocco. So it is about ourselves. We have tried this and we complain, it failed. We are trying this. So the only system we are going to try is monarchy, but we are only going back to the parliamentary system. If the parliamentary system is cheaper and it will foster, if it will be modeled to such a way that the mistakes of the past will be taken care of, then it's fine. For example, in a country like ours, why must we have 36 states out of assembly? Why? And each state has not less than 30 members. Look at the enormous resources that goes to maintenance of these structures. And they do nothing. So if in the 6 geopolitical zones we have one parliament, that will reduce a lot of cost. Must we have governors in all the 36 states? If we have regional heads, will it not be cheaper for us to do what we need to do? And why should we have the Senate and House of Reps? Many people don't know that the House of Reps and the Senate do the same job. The fundamental difference is that in the Senate is exclusively positioned to confirm appointments of Mr. President. Mr. President don't write to House, he writes to the Senate for any political appointee in the MDAs or the commissions or the boards. So apart from that, what they do in House is what we do in the Senate. So Constitution should be able to address these issues for the sake of the economy and for the sake of the progress and unity of the country, so that resources should not be used to oil political machine. It should be used for the greater good of the society.
Did you get any, I mean the Patriots, did the group get any assurances from the president after your presentation?
Well, everything was done in camera. I think the president was forthright. First of all, he appreciated our visit and the characters that represent the Patriot, and he assured us that he's going to look at all the issues which we presented, but specifically said his priority now is the economic reforms in the country. And when he's able to do that, he will now focus on other issues like the political reforms, which of course the Constitution comes in. And he appreciates our positions and also passion for the country, and fully assure us that at the time which he is going to embark on such an agenda, he will reach out and call us back specifically for that.
Now, on an individual level, what time frame do you think this could take? I mean, convening a constituent assembly, going for a referendum if a draft constitution is ready, and then adopting the new constitution. What time frame do you think? Can we do this between now and 2027, or is it a much longer time that we need?
I think when we came out at the press gallery of the villa, that similar question was asked, and the chairman of the Patriot, Anyaku, if I can remember, he said this is doable in, is it 12 to 13 or 15 months, something like that. I don't know, but I remember that he said something like that, that it's possible to achieve that within that period of time.
He actually said it's possible within 6 months.
He said it that?
Yes.
Okay, you are just telling me. I think so. Maybe that's what he said. But looking at the complexity of this country, to organize an election, nomination, submission is going to be a tough thing. But it is still in the interest of the unity, the peace, and the future of this country that we address all those structural and constitutional issues that have bogged us down as a nation.
For you, do you really think that a constitution can address a country's diversity and pluralism adequately?
Well, you see, when it comes to practicalizing what is on paper, that's a different ball game for Nigerians. As simple as autonomy for state judiciary was so difficult to achieve. Autonomy for state assembly was so difficult to achieve. Stopping the habit of tampering with local government funds was so difficult. So even what the Constitution has provided for us to do at this time is even difficult to implement. Talk less of, of having a new constitution for Nigeria. There will always be frustration. I can remember at a time, each time the National Assembly proposed autonomy for State House Assembly, it's usually the State House Assembly that oppose it. And they've been engineered by governors to do that. And on the matter of even security, you will see that when politicians are in power as governors, they want state police. But the moment they are out of office and they are now at the mercy of whoever is the governor there, they don't want state police, they want federal police. So we most times try to paddle beat and fashion the law that will suit us at a certain time when we are privileged or at a vantage position to use that for our own personal interest. So I believe that sacrifices need to be made in order for this country to move forward. But the unity, the peace, the stability of this country is pretty much predicated on compliance and conformity to the ideals of justice, freedom, unity, and equity in a country. If we do that, we will have. And the leadership, the president, the State House of Assembly, the federal legislature, the judiciary, all have to key into this. If we can even go strictly by what our constitution says, there will have been peace and all that. It's just like people call themselves Muslims and Christians, but their lives is not in conformity with what is written in their holy books. So we are still having the same that as a country. Even the constitution we have today is not well being complied with, talk less of a new.
Which is why persons like former President Olusegun Obasanjo and former Governor Sule Lamido says the constitution is not the problem of Nigeria, but the attitude of those who operate the constitution. For instance, the current constitution has a provision for federal character in appointments and all of that. But that is largely observed in its breach. So what is the guarantee that even a brand new constitution that provides all these provisions for safety nets for a more equitable society would work, that those who are going to operate it would make it work?
Yeah, you see, sometimes when people are in power, they don't see some things until when they are out of it. So I believe that there are things which they have seen, which we need to really take it seriously. And for the fact that they are speaking from experience. But in the general sense, I firmly believe that if this country is to strengthen itself and to move forward. You see, what I have come to understand is people don't look at Nigeria as an African country. They make statements without looking at our environment. For example, somebody will wake up one morning and say, Nigeria is it's a product of forced marriage. It's an artificial nation. It's created by the British. Now, which African country was not or is not a product of colonial demarcation? There is none. The countries you see, Benin Republic, Niger, Chad, Cameroon, were all colonial carve-outs, just like Nigeria. And they were also brought together by the force of the colonialists. So Nigeria is not so different. And when the British came to Nigeria, even nations that have not been colonized, like Ethiopia, a part of Somalia was carved out and dashed to eat. So part of South Sudan was dashed to eat, and also part of Somalia was dashed to eat. And part of Somalia was also carved out and dashed to Kenya. So all countries in Africa are products of colonial design. And you look at it in Nigeria, people say that it's the British that brought us together and whatever. Yes, British, the French, the Portuguese, the Spanish, launched a war against African tribes, conquered them, demarcated them into nations. Nigeria's case is not different from that of Congo, it's not different from Mozambique, it's not different from Angola, it's not different from that of Malawi. That is it. And when the British came, there were no sovereign states. There are no states. There is neither the Sokoto Caliphate, nor the Kanem-Borno Empire, nor the Yoruba Empire, nor the Igbos. There is no nation that has embassies in all parts of the world to say they have been conquered. So they were all led by traditional rulers here and there. And they did their colonial conquest and then brought us assassination. So America is a product of forced marriage. Canada was a product of forced marriage. Brazil was a product, but they have overcome their history and look forward to build a new nation. We are still thinking about how we all came to birth. America was a product of slavery, was a product of immigration. The Red Indians have nothing in common with the white Americans who came from Europe. The white Americans have nothing in common with the blacks who come from Africa. The blacks have nothing in common with Latinos who come from Southern America. But look at how the country is. Diversity became its strength. We keep on lamenting, we keep on complaining that we are not supposed to be together. We are not coming from the same father, we are not coming from the same mother. We are coming from this, we are coming from that. All nations, and we want to go to countries that also have the same problem and solve it and then move forward. We want to move to Canada. While Canada, some of them are French, some of them are English, some of them are Spanish, and they build their country. We want to Japan to that place. We want to go to United States and also make example with them while they make best use of their diversity. So I think, with even what is going on globally today, the ultra-right in Europe are attacking blacks, are opposed to immigrants. I think it's a clear message to us that you belong to your country, you should build your country no matter how bad it is. Don't think that because you have a green card, you live in Europe, or you live in the United States, or because you have citizenship. There are events and issues that may happen. They will still deport you back to your original country. So the best way for us as a country, we are so blessed. There is no nation on this earth that is as blessed as Nigeria. 95% of our land is arable. We have about 230 rivers. We don't have monsoon, we don't have earthquake, we don't have hurricanes in this country here. There is no part of this country you cannot plant a seed without it growing. We also had the gift of oil resources just 2 years after the British left. We have mineral resources in all parts of the country. Some countries have all this and they don't have population. We have population. So we have all the things that, even the countries that have all been mentioned in the Bible and the Quran, the Israel, the Palestinians, the Arabs people, the Ethiopians, are not as blessed as we are. So if even those countries that has manna from heaven are now looking to how they can make their desert green, but we already gifted with that green. So it is for us to connect our resources to our development and our lives, and this country will be better.
Well, distinguished Senator, before I let you go, our time is almost up, I must ask this question. The current precarious security situation in the country, what do you think needs to be done urgently, in the immediate, to resolve some of these challenges?
You see, some 2 days ago, there was a video in circulation where bandits from Sokoto State kidnapped the emir of Sabon Birni, and they paraded him, molested him, and also were molesting his own son. Now, northern part of the country in the last 1 decade has been under sustained attacks by bandits and terrorists. They kill, they kidnap, they rape, they burn down. Now, this is how they unleashed mayhem in our people. They have destroyed education in rural areas, and they have made it difficult for our farmers to go to their farms. Hundreds of villages are displaced, and this is the situation we have in our country today. First and foremost, I come from the northwestern part of the country, and my strongest message to my people in the north is that no matter how we have to hold the president accountable, but we have to do duty to address our problems ourselves. The Fulani bandits, the terrorists from the northwest, are not people from Congo or Tunisia. They are people, they are from our ethnic group, they are from our religion, they are from our homes. It is for us to sit down ourselves and address these problems once and for all. The government has a duty. It's just 12 to 13 months in power. But this problem was rooted for a very long time. The children we refuse to educate, the people we refuse to empower, the society we neglected for decades have today picked up arms against us, and nobody is in peace, neither rich nor poor. Addressing this problem, there are things the government can do, and there are things we have to do as a region. And for the other parts of the country, for those who want to succeed out of Nigeria, I think the message is clear. The world is becoming a global place. Regional economic blocks are being built. Nations are dissolving their borders for a common market. And you have an industrial population that wants to be everywhere and that are everywhere. In the 21st century, if people are thinking of creating an enclave for themselves, actually have not read that things have actually changed in the world of today. Government should address the security matters we are facing, but every region should also address its own peculiar problems for the interests of the unity, peace, and progress of this country.
Thank you very much, distinguished Senator. Comrade Shehu Sani, a member of the Patriots group, a former senator, a politician, and a rights activist, has been my guest on People, Politics, and Power. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Father.
All right, that's it for today. Please join us again. We'll bring you a fresh edition of the program. Bye for now.